and welcome. This is Kevin, also known as AWOL, and I'm back with making another bracelet. This time it is pattern 21614 on friendshipbracelets.net. I went with colors that were similar to the pattern, with the exception I replaced the black with a kind of a dark charcoaly kind of gray, because when I was kind of like putting the skeins together and looking at it, I felt like black was just going to be like too dark, too, much of a contrast. So I kind of wanted to tone it down a little bit, and the dark gray I think really did a good job of that. This pattern was pretty okay. It doesn't lend itself well to like great big segment knotting like I like, like there are certain bracelets that just really make segment knotting awesome, such as like a dovetail, right? You got the great big spot, you do long lines, do the sides, it really works out. There's a lot of little tiny fiddly areas, and I did my best to try to segment best I could. But that said, it's interesting. It's a nice well-balanced kind of pattern where kind of all the colors kind of work well. The red gets used kind of more than the other colors, like say orange or the blue. The red gets used more, and then the dark gray got used kind of a lot. Didn't have any problems with running out of string or worrying about the ending, but again, that's got a lot to do with the fact that I cut my string into thirds, 1/3 of a skein, which is pretty long overall, and it does get folded in half. If you look at the length, you'd be like, oh my god, it's huge, but it gets folded in half. So it's basically starts out like 2.3 meters or a little bit more than that, just slightly over that, but that gets folded in half, so it's like 1 point something of a meter. So it's nice and long, makes it so that way I don't have to worry about running out of string, which is a thing. Like, I know there are some people who are of the mindset that say they want to minimize the amount of waste that they have in the string, and that's cool. That's really, really cool. But are you really saving the string? If you end up cutting 2 meter, you're left with one more 2 meter, because there's supposed to be 8 meters to a skein. But if you're doing like 2.3, right, you're going to end up with a chunk left at the end that's not, well, I guess if it ends up as thirds, that's good. If you get a weird number in there, the little bit that you have left over, you're not saving yourself anything, and you did a lot of risky trying to finish a bracelet just to have a little bit of string left over. It doesn't make any sense to me. Yeah, I'd rather always play it safe personally. That's just my take on it. Hopefully that helps somebody out there. Maybe you were thinking that you would listen to somebody who gave some advice, and you're ending up with a tiny bit of string left at the end. It doesn't help. Like, if I cut it into thirds, I know that I got 3 pieces that will work out in whatever I'm trying to make. So I just realized I didn't know where I put my drink. So that's the thing. That said, yeah, I was happy with how this all turned out. Again, no worries of getting too short or whatever. And I do think maybe later on in this whole thing, you might see better segmenting than when I started off, because when I started off, I was just still trying to kind of get the feel for it and feel what was easier, because yeah, looking at this right now, I'm like, that's not easier. Eventually I think I kind of settled into a rhythm that worked out all right. So I don't think personally I would have enjoyed the pattern singularly. Like, it's cool enough. It's not a bad pattern. There's nothing wrong with it. But I think doubling it makes it more interesting because the way that the blue shape is kind of like the red shape, only it doesn't quite connect the same. It gives this like similarity, but yet somehow different. And something about that I think is really, really eye-catchy. If you do it as like just single, it would be like what you see on the right-hand side there, just a little blue pop out, you know, every so often. That's it. That's all the blue you would get. And I like the diamond. I like that the fact that the orange is centered in this little diamond. I like the fact that there's the dots on the ends, similar to, like I said, what the red has. The red has a little bulb thing at the end. So I think that there's some elements in there that kind of makes it interesting. I also think it's a little bit interesting here how the black comes down and they're knots that are next to each other, but the black didn't actually cross over. And that's sort of a look, you know, that's sort of a thing where, you know, if somebody's trying to decode the pattern, it's going to be really kind of hard at first to kind of notice what it is. It does cross over on the sides, right? On the two sides where the blue is. But when it comes in, like at the end, it's not actually going over itself. So that's kind of neat. That's what opens up to put that little blue dot in there. And then they join after that. So yeah, there's some really interesting bits that make it kind of fun and you know, I don't know. I have to say, I really like the pattern. It repeats itself like 5 times, so that made it a little bit less worrisome than I had with like the bracelet from a couple days ago. That one there's like 6 segments. This only has 5, so there was a bit of knowing when I got to the halfway point, like, okay, this is the half one, 2 more to go. I don't know why that makes such a big difference to me. Why 6 versus 5 left me a little bit whatever. I guess the not feeling like I hit the center, maybe. I really don't know. But it definitely felt a little bit easier this time around. Maybe I'm just kind of getting used to this size bracelet again. This is about the size that I was working with when I first started out making bracelets back in the 80s. I liked this size. It was big enough to feel kind of manly, but not so big that a woman would feel like, nah, too big, all right? It was that like real perfect size where you could get a lot of pattern into it, and it felt kind of right. So then later on, I discovered 12-string ones and got some cool patterns out of that. But this was about the size that I was working with early on. This is actually the size of like what I would consider to be my like signature pattern, the pattern I came up with myself. That's sort of, it's like an arrowhead yin yang. It's probably how I describe it. I have a tattoo of it. If you go on my Instagram, you can actually check that out. Because that, again, it feels like that is my pattern. But that said, I like experimenting around with these ones. I liked trying to work out a path of least resistance when it came to this pattern. I liked trying to, you know, make it interesting, and yeah, it's always, I'm always up for a challenge. And that might be, I just found this out while making this. I was watching some videos on ADHD. And it's the challenge of these things that gets an ADHD mind to focus in and, want to do a thing. I also think it's a little bit of the whole dopamine that you get when you accomplish even just a segment. It feels like, you know, I did a thing and it feels good about it. So yeah, I think if you are kind of new to bracelet making, this pattern's probably too much for you, but there's other ones you should check it out, because if you're like me and you have ADHD, there is some real reward in working on patterns and making knots and doing cool stuff. I think here I was trying to see if I turned it around and made it come like inwards, if that would be like a better segment. I'm not sure that it is necessarily like better than what I had, but it worked. Like I said, I tried experimenting. I tried doing it some different ways so that way I could kind of segment the best. Again, this whole thing took me right around 80 minutes to make. So it is a bigger bracelet that does take a little bit more time. So that's like an hour and 20, which I still feel like is a win when it comes to this size bracelet. So yeah. Overall, I do like the end product. I do think it's really nice. I've got it right here. I'm checking it out. I think that is the middle. Okay, let me, just because I will forget, and yeah, I don't want to stretch out the video longer. Let me just thank my Patreon supporters and my YouTube members for all their support. Seriously, I really count on them to help me get string and keep the whole thing going. So thank you guys so much. If you want to join, it's either the join button down next to subscribe, or for Patreon, you just go to patreon.com and it's /AKA AWOL. So, yeah, it really does motivate me to keep going. The fact that there are people who are willing to contribute like that, that just says a lot. It's one thing to, hit a subscribe button, which is nice. Definitely want to get, up there and maybe get a play button. But it's another to say, here's enough to buy, I don't know how much floss I can get with that. A bit though, a bit. Like I get my floss from China, so it's a lot cheaper. If I had to do the DMC floss, that's about $1, maybe a little bit more than $1 per skein. So a bracelet like this would have been 2, 4, 6, 8 skeins. It would have been $8 just to do that, which would take a couple members alone just to make one bracelet. And I'm making 9, 10, 11 bracelets in a month. Yeah, I would definitely need a lot more supporters in order to make that happen, because that would be pretty expensive. But because the string is cheaper, I stretch my dollar and make it happen for you guys and try to bring in a little insight as to what you might experience with doing this. And yeah, hopefully it helps. Hopefully it inspires you. That would be my biggest thing. If I can inspire you to see how to take a regular pattern and double it or change it, or whatever it is you're striving to do, if I can be helpful in that process, then this channel is a win. Yeah. Because I don't know if you guys are gonna want to try it, but this pattern in a single, I just don't. It's not as nice. It'd be almost too skinny, right? Because it would be 8 strands, right? So it's a really thin little bracelet as opposed to a 16. So yeah, it'd be really, really, really small. Particularly small if you're not doubling up your floss. Like, oh my god, that would be a super petite little bracelet. Which there's nothing wrong. Like if you're practicing and you're trying to save string and you want to experiment and do things, then by all means, like doing little petite ones will give you the practice you need without having to waste a whole lot of string to do it. But I don't know. This makes like I said, it's about 1 inch wide by doubling up the floss, and and an inch feels like that kind of nice, happy place for this size of a bracelet. Like that to me is not too overpowering. Because let's face it, I don't think there's a lot of people who wear 2-inch or 3-inch or 5-inch bracelets. And I know this because like there was a long time where I got really excited about making like huge ones. I wore one that was probably a good 7 inches, 7.5 inches. I wore that for a really long time. And everybody would notice it. Everybody like, wow, look, check that out. But nobody was like, hey, would you make me one? It's just too big. So that's okay. Like I said, I do really like this pattern though. I really do like the way that it came out. The colors choice, I think, works out really well. It's kind of a light blue, but powerful. The red is just kind of that basic red that like you would imagine like for a kid's crayon. That's the kind of red and orange. The blue is a little bit brighter, and then a gray. It just really goes so well together. Trying to think if there's anything else that I kind of like discovered or was thinking along the way. I definitely was feeling like there was not a real easy path for the segmenting. I really was trying different methods to try to get through it. And there's so many zigzag knots, like seriously, it's kind of crazy. I did try to stay like to make the back of it the same. Whenever doing like the orange diamonds, I tried to do that in a consistent way where like the first two go to the right and the other ones go to the left, because I was trying to make it so that way that even the back of the bracelet would be interesting. So you might notice that was a thing, and that was very deliberate. I was trying to make it kind of interesting, and yeah, I think it's cool. I think it turned out kind of neat. I still won't wear the bracelets backwards. That stuff drives me crazy. I know which is the side that people look at. Well, I say that. I know a guy who has tried making friendship bracelets, and somehow when he ties the knots, he gets the backward side on top. And I have no idea what he's doing to make that happen, but yeah, that would drive me insane. I don't want that. So, oh, so this bracelet, when making it, was supposed to be on a live stream. But it turned out like when I made the pattern, I did the whole video. I made the pattern, everything came out perfect. And then afterwards I got caught up in something, and I closed the program, and it said, don't you want to save this? And I'm like, no, and I didn't have it. So I had to actually remake this pattern, this little insider stuff that happens hopefully not too often. I had to redo the pattern, and to do that, to make sure that it came out the same as the other video, so as to not have to reshoot the whole video, I had to watch myself making it, and like, oh yeah, right, I did this, and okay, so, and I used which color, okay, and I had to go back over the whole thing. It was kind of funny, but of course I wasn't laughing when I started it. I was kind of upset with myself, to say the least. But yeah, it turned out the same. I double checked and made sure that with the video that it's still the same. I think the shade of gray might be off, but for whatever reason the program didn't save the colors I had been using before, so that was all right. I can deal with a little bit of discrepancy there, but overall it's still the same pattern, same stuff. think we're getting close to the end. I can't tell how many are up underneath the clip, so it's kind of hard to tell. But I think this is coming up into the end of it. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully you're inspired. Maybe there's a little bit of wisdom or something in there that is cool. I'll be back tomorrow with another pattern. And yeah, this is definitely the end. I can see I'm leaving off the strings. So yeah, again, thanks for hanging out with me. And as always, don't get your strings in a bunch.